Hey guys, today I'm going to be replacing the alternator in my RB25 swapped S13. I'm going to be taking out the old alternator. It was actually rebuilt by someone locally. It still failed, so I ordered a brand new one. I found one on sale. FR Sport? Yeah, it's frsport.com. They have tons of Nissan parts. I just ordered one. It's supposed to be a little bit upgraded one, and after doing a little bit of research online, I found it's a common problem with the RB25 motor that the alternators are very weak on it. So I'm going to try to break this down like an idiot's guide on how to swap out an alternator on this motor in this chassis. So yeah, here we go. Alright guys, thought I'd do a little brief overview of the tools you're going to need to take out this alternator. Forward, I've got the alternator right here. Went ahead and took it out already, but I'm just using this as a diagram so you can see what tools you're going to need for what part of the alternator. So for this 12mm wrench right there, it's a stubby wrench. I really like the stubby ones because I have bigger hands. You're going to be right there on the tensioner pulley. It's pretty easy. Technically it's going to be on the back side right there. Just take that out. Don't mess with the tension or anything because you'll have to screw with that once you put the alternator back in. But that takes that out. Then if we flip the alternator to the back of it right here, power, signal, ground. Don't use a screwdriver. Don't be an idiot like me. Use a 10mm stubby, or it can be a long one. This one right here, I used a 5/16 socket. We've got the main bolt that holds it into the block of the motor. That is going to be a 14. And then obviously you're going to have your socket. But yeah, just so you guys get the gist, that's what you're going to be using to take the alternator out. So here is the engine bay right here. Obviously intake manifold, exhaust manifold, radiators right here. Right there's the alternator, and then the belt that goes to the water pump right there. There is the alternator we're after. Let me focus that. Alternator we're after. It's pretty simple. It's literally about like three or four bolts to take this sucker off. So I'm gonna go ahead and lay all the necessary socket sizes and all that out, so it's super easy for you guys. You can write it down, or it'll also be in the description so you can just look. First things first, we have to release the little tension bracket that puts tension on the actual belt on the alternator. So that's just going to be a 12mm. It's kind of a tight space. You can attempt to use a socket, but I like options, so I have a long ratchet spanner, and then I've got a little stubby spanner. So now we're down in there. Just gonna be, I popped it off with the long wrench coming down at the angle that you're looking at through the camera, but this little stubby one's working pretty easy. This is always tricky when I put it back in because I didn't know how tight to make it. So it was kind of just a guessing game. So I went ahead and popped the little tensioner bracket off with that one bolt. Releases all the tension from the alternator, and then there's only one bolt and then some wires, and there's a small screw holding the ground on the rear of the alternator. But that's going to be a 14mm. So I'm going to grab that. So I'm just going to go ahead and grab a 14 wrench just in case. So I don't have to keep on getting in and out underneath the car, just to make my life easier. Alright, so now we are underneath the car, and we're looking at the rear of the alternator. Right there's the oil pan, and I mean, you can see the radiator right there. But basically the only thing that's really keeping it on is a bolt that runs right there to the end of there. And then we have a little wire right there connecting for the signal, and we've got the ground right there. So I'm going to go ahead and disconnect the ground and the signal wire, so that way when I do take that big bolt out, it doesn't come falling down and yank those cords out. So I'm going to do that right now. I just needed a little stubby 10mm spanner or wrench here. And alright, so basically what I did was Took the ground off of there, took the plug out. I'm going to deal with that guy when I get the other bolt out, just because it looks a little difficult and I can't see what's going on. Basically though, I took that bolt, I unbolted it. This thing was on the other side. But basically this thing is loose, that's attached to the block. And there might be another little bearing in there, but that'll fall out and then the bolt will fall out. But you get the picture. Alright, if you did everything correctly, you should have something that looks like this. A little hanging alternator down there. Now, this right here is the thing. I think my sockets I've been using are a little too thick to fit down in there. Anyways, found this in my tool bag. It's a little 5 1/16. This right here is metric size. This will work. I couldn't find any of my small metric stuff. It's just something that I don't seem to have a lot of, is really small metric type stuff. So it's really a shame that I got to keep on, well, I don't want to say keep on replacing this alternator. All right. That slides out. I was told that the grooves inside this fit on that very specific, and they're important that they're grooved together very well. Alright, so we got the alternator out. These are the bolts that came out of it. I'm gonna go ahead and put them back right here. That's the ground. That was the back end of it. So it was always tricky the first time I took this alternator out, because my I got an aftermarket Mishimoto radiator, so it's really thick inside there, and when I try to pull this bolt out, it would hit the radiator, and I was like, oh crap, I literally have no idea how I'm gonna get this out. But basically all I did was slid this off, and then it's still bolted onto right here, but it will pivot, and then you can just slide it right out. You just got to manhandle it and wiggle it a little bit, and I promise it will come out. But yeah, that right there. It's a stock RB25 alternator I just took out, and I believe the one that's coming in the mail should be here tomorrow. It's called Circuit Sport. Alright guys, that wraps up, that is the removal of an alternator from an RB25 and an S13 chassis. Obviously the chassis doesn't really matter here. It's mostly the motor. This is a very easy removal of a part. I hope that was super helpful for you guys. If you have any questions, just comment below and I will hopefully see them and I'll respond back.